show.
Okay.
Did you get
All right.
the
No.
All right,
Two.
friends. Well, we're now streaming, so just so you know, we've had the opportunity to open up with a word of prayer. Kennedys, please let Michelle know that we were missing her this evening, and that we say hello.
Okay.
And so we want to pick up with chapter 5, and Tammy, if you'll let Brenda know we missed her this evening, and
I will.
just want to check in on her today. All right, so chapter, sorry, it wasn't chapter 5, it's chapter 6. Clutter and the common good. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. Clayton, would you be willing to put up our readings, please?
Yeah.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Aw. What am I missing?
If it helps, this chapter begins on page 71.
No, that doesn't help either. Oh, I'm looking at the question. Yeah, I'm looking at that. However,
1 second here.
let's look at the book. Can I have the book, please? Thank you. Okay. There we go. Now I'm in business.
All right. Did anybody besides the Kennedys get to do some decluttering this week?
I've
been doing it.
I was able to declutter my car.
That's good.
Hey, that's the thing.
I've been doing it for days.
Your car? Or decluttering?
I don't think I'll ever get through.
I did outdoor decluttering. I got all my pots in order and cleaned out all the old pots, and I've been trying to thin the ornamental grass, and I dug out huge clumps of ornamental grass and took 2 truckloads to the dump. Anyhow, but if anybody wants ornamental grass, I've got another 2 truckloads to go.
What is ornamental grass?
It's something that grows and grows and grows.
Yeah, and if you don't take care of it, it gets out of control. But it's large, beautiful grasses. When they bloom, they have tassels on the top. I'll send you a picture of mine. They're just a mess. But if you'd like a clump, I'd be glad to save it for you.
I've been trying to kill men.
And if you don't thin them often enough, you need a backhoe to get them out.
Yeah, and they are hard to kill. The best way is just to dig them out. Otherwise, you're poisoning the ground. So
Clayton, would you scroll down just a little bit to Clutter and the common good, please?
There you go.
Awesome. Thanks, honey. Okay, so this is one of the chapters that is, I think, really important. I heard Linda Verhoeven say last week that this was one of the chapters that was really important for her in reading this book, that there really is a relationship between our clutter and our relationships with others. And so it's important for us to consider just what our clutter takes away from us and in our ability to be able to be in relationship with others. But there's also a part in which our clutter gives us opportunities to be in relationship with others. So one of the things that you all know, I like shoes. And so about as much as I like my books. So this quote in the text really got to me. Is my ability to buy shoes for half the price worth the human cost? And what she's asking in the book, is it worth buying shoes that are inexpensive if the cost of those shoes is literally someone else's child's labor? Because our lack of awareness of where our items are sourced from really makes a difference in potentially who's making it and at what cost they're making it. There are people around the world who are suffering because of our consumerism. And so while it seems like a really good deal and it feels good to be able to make, to utilize our money well, and it feels good to be able to feel like we are stewarding our money well, by getting a good deal and not overspending, the realization is that we might actually be potentially doing harm even as we are being thrifty. And so and this is a hard one for me, right? Because that means actually bothering to look at where I buy my clothes, how they're sourced, so where they come from, who is making them, so what companies and where their manufacturing is, how that manufacturing treats their employees. That's a really intense thing. It would require actual research on the internet, being selective in where I buy products. My grandfather was a World War II veteran, and so he was obsessive about made in America. He was not, for the most part, going to buy something, if he could help it at all, that was not sourced in the United States. Now, I'm not saying we can't source something from outside of the United States, but one of the benefits of sourcing through the United States is we do have regulatory practices that ensure that we are not employing child labor, and that people are being employed for a fair wage, or at least a somewhat of a fair wage. And so this is one of the things she's talking about when we talk about our clutter and the common good. So sometimes, adding an extra pair of shoes that is really inexpensive and looks nice may not be worth the human cost. So dealing with clutter is difficult because it is personal. The common good refers to the good that God intends for all of humanity, and that all of humanity to have dignity, their basic needs met, and to be in a place where they find peace. I'm reminded, when I think about that, of when I was traveling with the college students to Guatemala, and a lot of the things that you could buy on street corners or from local vendors has colors like this particular pink that is not actually resourced with healthy dye. So in order to create something like this bright, vibrant pink, it often involves something that is not healthy for human beings, and that's arsenic. And so for these women to be able to weave or something with that color dye or yarn of that color, it meant actually exposing themselves to chemicals that were incredibly harmful. And what they talked to us about, I'll never forget sitting in this, kind of adobe sort of home with all sorts of plants hanging from the rafters, and a mortar and a pestle, and them actually like showing us what they did to create indigenous as well as eco-friendly dye. And so that was not harmful to the women who were using it to be able to create handy goods and local crafts. But it was at a greater cost because the ability to manufacture the cheaper dye is cheaper, or the vibrant dyes and some of the other colors is less expensive. But its cost is astronomical in terms of healthcare and human capacity. So when we're talking about those things, I'm reminded of how what we consume affects the people who are producing. And I think that's part of what she's just trying to get us to understand in Clutter and the Common Good. And so what she's talking about is that the world is interconnected, but we are each responsible for how our personal decisions affect welcome, Brenda. Our personal decisions affect those around us, as well as creation. Some of those dyes that we were introduced to are also not good for the ground. So as it is released into waterways, or as materials break down, they can really be harmful to the environment. So has anybody else ever had any experience of considering or looking at what they're buying, and when they see an object, considering the human cost?
Well, I know my son is adamant about buying things made in the USA. And it's hard to find some things that are made in the USA. It's really hard. They go online and everything to try to find these particular goods, and things like shoes and sneakers and stuff.
Clothing.
Most of those are not made in the United States. And, it's very hard to find some of these goods that are not produced elsewhere. And it's hard to find out if they are produced elsewhere, how safe is the environment that they're produced in.
Those are hard to find out. Linda?
One thing that I started thinking of is I really like to support the county in which I live. And so when I can purchase things locally or do things locally, I like to do that. And one of the things I really enjoy is going to local food stands. And Beckner's is one in particular I like to go to. And it's a German Baptist family and they provide fresh produce. And someone said to me, Linda, their stuff is really expensive. And I said, the reason I like to support them is for one, is they live locally. For two, I know the chemicals they do and don't use on their property. I mean, they're very much more holistic. They try not to use pesticides that harm the environment. And so that's just one small thing I like to do in the summer is to buy their local produce because, again, the money goes back into Franklin County. I know what goes into the food I buy. And if it does cost me a little bit more, I just live with that.
Well, we're very fortunate that we have several dairies around that we can get local milk from. And so not everybody has that ability. But to get local produce is really helpful too. Does anybody else try, particularly get anything local? You all shop local.
My neighbor grows chickens and we get eggs from them.
I have a chicken. She gets me one egg a day.
How cool.
I didn't know you had chicken.
I have just one.
I tried to talk Clayton into chickens and he just looked at me and shook his head.
It's good fertilizer.
Yeah, it is.
It gets rid of ticks too.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to be seeing chickens on the highway.
No, we're not.
Not until my father-in-law gets here. Now I have actually talked into discussing having a little bit of some farm animals.
Oh, that'd be nice.
He grew up on a sheep and goat farm. And so I think he would be willing to have a few chickens. We can get eggs from him.
Excellent.
Yes, I think so. Anybody else get anything local?
I buy local when I can.
Yeah. And some of the restaurants are local. And
Yeah.
before COVID, I could participate in going to those.
Well, we can still in some ways. There's always the ability to pick up. A lot of places still have curbside pickup. And if you call ahead, you can be able to have it brought to your car. So we've talked about how what we're purchasing can affect us and the world around us, because when we buy it, it adds clutter to our lives, but it also may make an effect in someone else's. So, but the other part of what she talks about in this chapter is when we acquire and keep more than what we need, we can hurt others in the sense that our need to amass or to possess can sometimes create problems for others in our lives. Whether that's eventually down the road when someone has to figure out what to do with our treasures, or maybe when our treasures get to be more than what we can manage, but also they can make a difference in not being able to share. I know Pat talked about some of that last week. Or no, sorry, it wasn't Pat, it was Betty talked about how she'd asked her mom for a piece of furniture and it didn't come down to her. And by the time her mom wanted to give it to her, she didn't need it anymore. So what are ways that maybe what we're acquiring is maybe making an impact in someone else's life, or what we're holding on to is keeping us from the ability to bless someone else?
Well, definitely would bless our children that inherit clutter when we go on, we pass on. That's a big thing. We have to think about what they would have to deal with.
Does make a difference. It's a good point, Pat. Anyone else? Does anybody have something in their possession that if they were to take it to a thrift store? I know the Stepping Stones runs one now. They don't receive clothing items, but maybe you have something sitting on a shelf that, you know, doesn't maybe have some value, but you don't need. You could bless the thrift store with that they could resell to be able to help Stepping Stones. Does anybody, do we think we could pull maybe one thing out to be able to take to the Stepping Stones mission this week?
I have
Okay.
several things.
You can borrow Linda's truck.
Okay, so Pat has a couple. Anybody else have something that comes to mind that they think they can take off a shelf and donate to the Stepping Stones mission? Their thrift store?
I'm going to clean
Yeah.
out my coffee mugs.
Coffee mugs, okay, that would be
Mhm.
helpful. Anyone else?
Clothing.
They don't take clothing, but we
But-
can bless others with our clothes.
So they take household goods though.
Household goods, yes.
So if I go through and I look at towels, I'm sure I have towels or sets of sheets that I don't use. I go through that periodically, so I may not, but you know, different household items I have that I haven't used. I'm just kind of always cleaning stuff out.
Yes. I don't know about household items in terms of like anything that's fabric related. That would be a question for Kim Weinschreider. She would know. But I know they definitely are taking
Crock pots.
yes, that I believe they take those sorts of things. Knickknacks,
Lamps.
lamps. Actually, we were blessed by that mission. I've needed a lamp for our spare bedroom for a year and a half. Kim said they had all these lamps. She took a picture, sent it to me, and I was able to get a lamp for our spare bedroom.
Linda, the SPCA or animal places loves to get towels and sheets. and things.
Yes.
Yes, they do.
I remember I had cleaned out I did it a couple years ago. I had gone through and cleaned out some towels and some sheets and stuff. And there was a family at church that was looking for those things. And so I was really happy to pack up 2 or 3 boxes of things and give them to this family. And the family was ecstatic and they needed them. And I think when you have growing kids, you just go through things faster than a single adult living in a house by themselves, you know? So for me, just getting it to someone who can use it always gives me joy. And
I can give you joy. I can always use some towels. Hunter's using beach towels right now because I don't have enough towels.
Okay, girlfriend, you're on my list.
Okay.
But one of the pages in the book, and I have it on Kindle, so I don't know exactly what page I'm on, but it talked about the common good requires 3 things. And the second thing was that each person have access to those things needed to live in accord with dignity. And I thought, isn't it amazing to think that we can share something that enhances someone else's dignity? I don't think of it like that. I'm like, there's people who or using beach towels for all sorts of things. But there's people who just lack the basic things they need. And by sharing from my wealth of whatever it is in my house, it doesn't cost me anything except the time to go through and then share things with others. And, I think of the early church and how in the early church, whatever people had belonged to the common good. The next page talks about, as members of the body of Christ, supporting the common good is part of our mission. And, in the early church, everybody gave everything they had to the church, and then it was dispersed as needed amongst the people of the church. And this chapter really helped me think of, how am I living into that mission? I just never thought of that before.
Well, I've thought about, even with my wedding dress, we have hauled it every single place we've moved. I am never wearing that dress again. That's if I could ever get into it again, which is unlikely. But at the same time, I know there's an organization that if I wanted to send my dress to, they take wedding dresses and turn them into garments for people who have lost small children.
Now,
For burial.
I actually looked online yesterday because I was thinking about getting my wedding dress after 55 years. And all of those places that they have online for that say they are not presently accepting wedding dresses because they have abundance of them.
Gotcha.
They need to sew up their inventory. They make gowns for babies that have passed on, that type of thing, but they're not accepting gowns right now, because I was thinking that would be a good thing to get rid of.
Well, or even if we just simply donate it to a local Goodwill, how do we know that it's not going to bless somebody else in their marriage? Somebody who may not have the financial resources to go out and buy a new wedding dress.
I'm reminding you. Take
Well, if
medicine.
it's in good shape after 55 years, it's not too great.
Because you never know, right, what somebody might be able to do with it. I think about all of those things that we have kept and held on to because they have sentimental meaning and value. But at the same time, to what ends, right? And how might we be able to bless somebody else in that endeavor? One of the things she talks about is that when we give these things away, we have the opportunity to bless somebody who might have need of them, as well as letting go of it to God in some ways. Of when we release it and we pray, God, please bless whoever receives it, then we have an opportunity to be a part of a greater story that goes beyond just our own narrative and our own experiences. Two of the things that she really said to me that really struck me in terms of how to manage the clutter is that to remove collected clutter as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because if not, it just becomes more clutter, right? So
Right.
if you have 3 boxes that you're working through, because that's one of the things she talks about is, to take it in small measure if you need to. Choose one room at a time. Set out boxes. That's what you can use those leftover Amazon boxes for. And to put in what you want to donate, what you maybe are still thinking about keeping, or maybe need to discuss with someone else outside of like large pieces of furniture. Don't put that in a box. You won't get it in. That was a joke. Haha. It was being funny. Or to then have the box of just give away or throw away, in the sense that not all things that we've collected can in some ways be given on. One of the things that she really challenges us to consider is you want to give something you would want to get. So if you've got a pair of pants that's missing a button, shirts that have small holes or tears in them, those are really hard to be able to resell. And nobody wants to go to a Goodwill and go buy a shirt only to find that it has a hole in it or that a button is missing. Mainly because often if we're not going to spend the time to fix or repair it, somebody else may not have that time or even ability either. When there's an organization in Stanton called that was initially called the Secret Boutique. I believe they've changed their name since I first became acquainted with them, that received clothes for local kids in the area who were getting bullied. And the mountains of clothes they would receive was incredible. But the challenge was they wasted so much human resource, time, energy, effort, space that they didn't really have. People were generous in donating used clothing, but they had to spend so much time going through to decide if the clothing was even something that they could hand back out, because it was either so worn, ratty, torn, stained. And so if we've got a shirt that has a stain or two on it and we want to re-gift it, that's probably not something that somebody would really be able to use, right? We don't feel
Right.
comfortable going out with a shirt with stains on it. Do you think someone else would?
No.
And so that's something to really consider about when we think about giving what we would want to get. And so, especially as we're making those piles, right? So friends, I guess what I'm asking is, do we think we can find, again, one thing for the Stepping Stones mission this week? And Clayton, thank you for moving us forwards. The passage, and Jesus said, looking at him, loved him and said to him, you lack one thing. Go and sell all you have and give it to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Come and follow me. So there really is something, at least from Jesus's perspective, of which should also therefore be our perspective, in being willing to let go of what we possess in order to follow Jesus more faithfully, more closely. What local agencies might benefit? So maybe we can create a little bit of this list together, because then all we have is to talk about is our brief conclusion. What local agencies? Let's do a collective mind meld of places that we could go take items that could be blessed as we declutter.
Well, we heard from the foster care agency, and they can use suitcases, and they can also use things like the UMW is looking into making welcome bags for the children when they become
marvelous
various items with them.
Yes, thank you, Pat, for bringing back that back up. So local foster care agencies quite specifically can use old luggage that's still in decent shape, duffel bags, those kinds of things. So we have local foster care agencies. Anywhere else?
Women's shelters.
Okay, so women's shelters. Do we have a local women's shelter that we could bring things to?
The Family Resource Center in Rocky Mount.
Family Resource Center in Rocky Mount. Okay, great.
Would that be a place you could bring bedding to, let's say? Sheets, pillowcases?
Which one are you talking about? The Family Resource
Family
Center?
Resource Center, the Family Resource Center.
I don't know.
I'll call them, okay.
I know some organizations are not taking everything now during COVID, this COVID thing. I know a lot of places were not taking books, but I did find out that CAP is still taking books.
Who is?
CAP, Total Action Against Poverty.
Okay.
Goodwill loves to get magazines and books.
Who is that, Talfia?
Goodwill.
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 The Rescue Mission is another one.
Okay.
Habitat for Humanity.
Habitat, quite specifically, if you are looking to get to let go of hardware appliances, like let's say you want to change a sconce in your house, or you're replacing a ceiling fan, and the ceiling fan you had was functional, especially those kinds of things, they will gladly take those.
Let's dance.
Hello.
So, and I've used Habitat a lot. When we bought this house, the guy who owned it before us had gotten lots of supplies because he was finishing it off himself. And so we had, extra screen doors, we had ceiling fans, we had other things. And so anything that's like a building material kind of thing that can be used, Habitat loves. I mean, I took 2 truckloads of stuff to Habitat. They were ecstatic, and I was even more ecstatic to get rid of it.
Well, when we moved out of our house, they actually brought a trailer over to our house and loaded it up with a lot of tools and everything from our shed that Jim had. So
Yes, that's a big one. Okay, so we've got a good list running. We have Habitat, we have TAP, we have the local foster care agency, we have Goodwill, we have the rescue mission, we have the Family Resource Center, we have Stepping Stones. Any others that we could potentially be able to donate to?
Well, in Manita, Resurrection Church has what's known as Joyous Junk. And they have a 2-day sale. And let me tell you, you can get some really good stuff there. And they pick up. They work on it all year. Oh, really? That's what it's called, Joyous Junk.
Oh, I think the name's fabulous. I just don't need more clutter.
JUNQUE.
Yes.
Hey,
And-
so when do they have their sale, Elizabeth?
Usually in June, but they will pick up all year.
Okay.
And so will Trinity
Who knows
Trinity
what's
Ecumenical
happening?
Church will too. They
Oh,
have
yes.
No.
they have a
Yes,
big yard
Trinity
sale.
Ecumenical has modeled themselves after Joyous Junk, because my girlfriend goes there. And now they are doing a 2-day thing also. I don't know how easy it is for them to pick up. I know Joyous Junk.
I called them when we moved and they came out the next day and got.
Oh, good. Okay.
That's Trinity
Refrigerator.
Treasures.
Yeah, that's Trinity Treasures and Joyous Junk.
That's
I don't
fabulous.
think they take clothing though.
I know the last few years that Joyous Junk was in operation, they made over $100,000.
Oh my goodness.
They donate to 25 charities.
Wow.
Besides what the church takes a little bit and then they donate.
Well, they
to
cover their
25
expenses and a little bit more, but most of it goes back to the community.
And they take cars, boats, you name it, they take it.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, friends, what I also want to say too is that one of the options she did give in the book too is, sometimes we might have the ability to sell some of our own possessions ourselves and then be able to take the revenue and gift it to any of those local organizations you've named, to the church as well, if you would so desire. And so that's another opportunity, because we can always give things through, we can always give things in terms of selling on eBay or Facebook Marketplace, any of those potential options. Well, we're going to now move to just our conclusion. It was only a couple of pages, but I think it has some really valuable pieces in here. So God is waiting for you and for me in these challenges of decluttering. And God offers comfort as we have to move into that space of letting go. Our relationship with God should enter into every aspect of our lives. That includes our clutter. And decluttering focuses our attention attention when we buy off of what we want and pushes us into what we need. I don't know about you, but as I have been out or doing, I've really had to look at something and say, no, Sarah, no, Sarah, no, Sarah, you don't need it. You might want it, but you don't need it. And what it's helping me do is start seeing the world as clutter in some ways, that I see the things around me as things that are not necessary most of the time. All this stuff in the world is a poor, inadequate replacement for relationship with God. And so even if that's simply just, and she even talks about clutter as even the laundry we still need to fold and manage. So, and I really appreciated this quote: all the clutter in the world cannot make us feel whole. Only God can satisfy the needs of our hearts and our souls. So what have you accomplished during the season? What can we celebrate with you? What are you still hoping to declutter and to begin changing? And how has God and your faith helped you in this process?
Well, when we moved into the smaller space that we're in now, I did a lot of decluttering to begin with. But this course has kind of helped me look at things and say, I still have a lot more to go. a lot more work is there.
Yes.
I can see things that I really don't need that have been sitting, and why did I even bother to move them? You know?
I can totally get on board with that. How about you, Charlene? What have you been able to work through this season, during this season of decluttering?
There we go. I'm unmuted. What it's been able to, or what it's shown me is how to look at my stuff. I do have a lot of clutter, more clutter than I really thought I had. I thought I had been doing a really good job of decluttering, but it's just given me, I guess, maybe new eyes to see everything that I still need to really go through. So I believe that's the big thing. And one of the take-home messages for me from this, if I'm not using it, then it needs to go to the poor. I think that's one of the phrases she used in the book. And that was something I could remember and apply.
Thanks, Charlene. I agree. All right, Tammy, how about you?
Calling us out. I think I'm kind of like Charlene. Mine is more just, it's given me concepts to think about, things to look at. You know, I can't say that I have decluttered. I have made different decisions on some things, but then on some things I have not. So, you know, it's a work in progress.
Yes, it is.
But I do see the concept of clutter causing anxiety and tension and keeping you from God and other things. So, you know, I know the need for that. I still just need to get there.
Well, I want to celebrate with you that you have at least had an experience where you've chosen not to add to your clutter. That is progress.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Gail, how about you?
Well, I just think it has made me look at things differently. I've been decluttering this whole month ever since we started. And I had filled my car up one day and took it to Goodwill. And I am still cleaning out closets and things. But I noticed as I was doing it that I have really looked at things differently and thought, you know, I really don't need that. I haven't worn it in 3 years, so I'm giving it away. Some of them had the tags still on them.
Wow.
And I thought, this is terrible.
Well, I'm so excited that you took a whole carload of things to Goodwill. That's awesome. Good for you. Brenda, how about you? Oh, sorry, Brenda. Here, let's unmute you.
I didn't realize I was muted. I know what I want to do. It's just a matter of getting started and actually doing it. But I think I've got where I can let go a little easier than what I used to could. I've kind of got the concept. Well, I'm sure Hunter feels the same way, but Jessica's pretty much gonna throw everything in the trash. She's done told me that she don't want anything. So that's why I've kind of been, trying to clean out so that she won't have so much to throw away. But she's got pretty much whatever she wants, she'll come over and if she sees something, she takes it. So, which is all good. So just trying to get, I just think, I think I finally got to the place where I might not hold on quite so tight to things that really mean only something to me and nobody else.
That's a big movement, and I want to celebrate that with you, because sometimes that movement of simply just being able to get to a point where we can say, yes, I can let go, is sometimes the hardest step to make, especially when we've had loss, especially when there's grief. And so I want to celebrate with that with you, and look forward to seeing even those steps forward that I know you're going to make.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Other Gail, how about you this evening? What progress have you made?
I haven't made a whole lot on decluttering, although I can see the top of my dresser now. Maybe not all of it, but I can see the top. It is really wood there. But I really like some of the tools this book has given us for how to think about not only about our stuff, but about our relationship with God.
Yeah.
That's been my favorite part.
Yeah. Me too. I've really been challenged by a lot of that. Thank you for sharing. Linda Waybright, how about you?
Well, I have been decluttering for a while now, but there's much more to be done. But one of the things that I have decided is food. I cleaned out my freezer, and I have decided just to buy what I need and use the things that's in the pantry and in the freezer that we kind of stick in there and forget that we've got. So I'm going to try to be more careful about what I'm buying and not wasting so much.
That's well said. That's one of the areas I have felt challenged on. I was really proud of Clayton and I when we actually pulled stuff out of the freezer the other day and took the time to get it to thaw and cooked with it. That's really great. Delphia, how about you?
I have to do the same thing with that, because with the groceries, sometimes I buy more than I need and I put them in the freezer and then I end up throwing them away. So, and it is a burden for me because I've been working on decluttering for several days, and I do have clothes that I'll look at and I'll say, well, do I need that? But that's another project I've got to go yet on my walk-in closet, because I have a lot of clothes that I can give to somebody.
Delphia, that's fabulous. Friends, I just want to celebrate all of the changes that are taking place. That's transformation. That's what Jesus invites us into. That's what it means to follow Christ, is to experience transformation in our lives, that we might be able to share that transformation and experience of transformation, what we call a testimony, with others. But also because when we experience that transformation, we often will end up blessing others because of the changes we have made in our lives and God has made in us. And so I just want to celebrate that with you all. That's fabulous. Now, if you're like me and you now have a book that is now a part of an extra piece of yourself, maybe you know somebody that this book would bless, that they might enjoy reading it. The one thing I appreciated about this is that it wasn't super big, and that the chapters weren't really all that hard in terms of they weren't really long. And so maybe you know somebody who would be blessed if you didn't get it on a digital version, but you have it in paperback. They might be blessed with this book. And I encourage you. I've
already promised mine to someone.
Fabulous, Linda. Maybe pray about who God wants you to hand it to. Well, friends, we're going to take that 5-minute break and we're going to go to our breakout groups. You all have a time to have conversation with Clayton and talk to one another. Maybe even in that breakout session, have an opportunity to ask if anybody needs anything. If they know of a need that someone might have. it very well might be through the Holy Spirit an opportunity for us to realize we have something that we might be able